The war had lasted so long that Marcus Hale could no longer remember the sound of silence. Everywhere, on every world, the machines touched. There was only the ringing of weapons, the thunder of explosions, and the static voice of metal enemies that never seemed to run out of soldiers. Marcus was not a great hero by reputation. He was not the commander of fleets nor the genius strategist who wrote war plans. He was only a lieutenant, a mid-rank human officer assigned to the mixed battalion stationed on the world of Sindara 7. He had brown hair that never stayed neat, a scar across his cheek that he never explained, and a way of smiling even in the darkest hours. His gift was simple. He could make people laugh. And in a war where every day could be your last, laughter was a shield as important as any armor. Arrival of the Therial on Sindara 7, humans were not alone. The war had forced dozens of alien races into the same trenches. Some of them were tall, some small, some scaled, some feathered. Among all of them, none drew more fear and respect than the Therial. The Therial were warriors bred for war itself. They stood taller than any human, often 7 feet or more, and their armor was like moving statues. Black, gold, and silver plates with glowing veins of energy running through them. They spoke little, moved with purpose, and when they fought, entire squads of machines fell in minutes. Commander Salira was the most feared among them. She led with silent authority, her armored figure like a walking monument. No one ever saw her face. Her helmet was always on. Her voice, when she chose to use it, was calm but heavy, like stone grinding against stone. Humans whispered about her. Some said she was less a soldier and more a legend. Others joked that she wasn't even alive under all that armor. Marcus, however, had a different way of looking at things. To him, if someone was too serious, then they needed humor more than anyone else. The war camp, the battalion, was dug into the scarred valleys of Sindara 7. The ground was black with ash, the skies lit by fire from orbital battles overhead. Their camp was nothing more than a collection of shelters dug into rock and dirt, with energy barriers humming faintly to keep out shrapnel and radiation. Inside, soldiers gathered when the fighting eased. They shared food, polished weapons, and exchanged stories. It was during one such evening that Marcus sat among his squad, leaning on a crate, his rifle resting across his knees. His squad mates were tired, eyes sunken, uniforms worn from weeks of fighting. They needed distraction, so Marcus gave it to them. "Do you know why the machines always lose when they face us?" Marcus asked, waving his hands like a performer on stage. "Because we've got better guns?" someone answered half-heartedly. "No," Marcus said, "because we've got jokes. And no machine in the galaxy can process human humor. You tell them a knock-knock joke and they crash." That earned a chuckle. "Go on then," said Private Yana, her arms crossed but a smile twitching on her lips. All right, Marcus said, standing up now, pretending to address the whole camp. "Imagine this, the machine commander says, 'Surrender organics.' Resistance is irrational. And then one of us just points at him and says, 'You.' That's it. Just one word. You." He'd never recover. System error. Shutdown. Laughter broke through the tired soldiers. Even a few of the other alien allies gave amused snorts or clicking noises that passed for laughter in their species. It was then, at that exact moment, that Commander Salira walked past. The laughter hushed instantly, as though a cold wind had blown through the camp. The towering armored figure turned her helmet slightly toward Marcus, the glowing visor focusing on him. Marcus, never one to back down, grinned wider. He raised his hand, pointed right at her, and in the same tone as his joke said, "You." The camp froze. The soldiers looked from Marcus to Salira, expecting disaster. No one ever mocked the Therial, much less their commander. But Salira did not speak. She stood there silent, her armored head tilted slightly as if she was studying him. The glowing visor reflected Marcus's own face back at him. Then, without a word, she turned and walked on. The laughter did not return. Instead, the soldiers whispered nervously. After the joke that night, as Marcus lay in his bunk, he thought about her. He had only meant it as a joke. But the way Salira had stopped, the way she had stared, it hadn't felt like anger. It had felt like something else. The next day confirmed it. During briefing, when commanders outlined the defense lines against the next machine wave, Salira stood at the side as usual, silent in her towering armor. But Marcus noticed something strange. When he spoke, giving his unit's readiness report, her visor turned toward him. She watched him until he finished. After the meeting, when soldiers filed out, she walked past him slowly. Again, her head tilted toward him, as if acknowledging him in a way she never did with others. Marcus felt a strange weight settle in his chest. He had made jokes before, poked fun at officers, teased comrades, but never had his words carried this kind of consequence. Stories of Celira. In the following days, Marcus began asking questions, quietly, carefully. What's her deal? He asked Yana one evening. Celira. Yana shook her head. Don't even try. The Therial, they're not like us. They live in armor from the time they're grown. That armor isn't just protection, it's their honor. Their life. No one ever sees what's underneath. Never? Marcus asked. Not unless you're Therial yourself. Even their allies aren't allowed. Some say even their own soldiers don't know what their commanders look like without it. Marcus whistled softly. That sounds lonely. Lonely. Yana laughed bitterly. She's a war hero. Legends don't get to be lonely. But Marcus wasn't so sure. The encounter 2 days later, after a brutal battle that left half their battalion wounded, Marcus found himself walking back to camp late at night. The field was quiet, smoke still rising from wrecked machines. He carried his rifle over his shoulder, body aching, spirit heavy. As he approached camp, he noticed a massive armored figure standing alone at the ridge, watching the stars. It was her, Celira. For a moment, Marcus thought of walking away, but something inside him pushed forward. He climbed the ridge, boots crunching on loose stone. Commander, he said casually, didn't think you were the stargazing type. Her helmet turned toward him, glowing visor like an unblinking eye. She said nothing at first. Then at last her voice came low, steady, almost thoughtful. Why did you say it? Marcus blinked. Say what? You. The word echoed in the quiet night like a challenge, but also like a question. Marcus rubbed the back of his neck. Honestly? It was just a joke. To make the others laugh. Didn't mean any disrespect. Celira was silent again. The stars reflected off her armor. A joke, she repeated slowly, as if testing the word. Yeah, Marcus said softly. A joke, but maybe not only that. She tilted her head slightly. You're the strongest person here, Marcus continued. Everyone sees you as untouchable. Untouchable things can be scary. So I made it human. I made it simple, just you. Not a commander, not a symbol, just you. For the first time, Celira did not turn away immediately. She stood there, her armored form unmoving, but Marcus could feel something shift in the air between them. And in that silent moment, Marcus realized his joke had not been a throwaway line. It had been the first time anyone had spoken to Celira as if she were more than her armor. The war still raged, the machines still loomed, but something had begun that night on the ridge. Something serious. The days on Sindara 7 bled together. Battle, repair, wait, and fight again. For most soldiers, survival was the only thought. But for Marcus Hale, there was now something else, something that stayed with him every waking hour. It was the way Commander Celira had asked that question. Why did you say it? She had not been angry. She had not punished him. Instead, she had asked as though the word had weight, as though you meant more than a joke. Marcus had replayed it in his mind again and again. He could not forget her tall, armored figure on the ridge, her glowing visor watching him like a silent flame. He had answered honestly, or as honestly as he could. But he knew there was more behind her silence than he understood. Strange attention at first. Marcus thought it was his imagination. In the command briefings, while officers discussed battle maps, Celira's visor seemed always to turn toward him. She stood like a statue towering above others, yet Marcus could feel her focus. During meals in the camp hall, she did not sit, did not eat like others. No one knew how the Therial sustained themselves. But she always stood near the wall, scanning the soldiers. And Marcus noticed that when he laughed or spoke too loudly, her head would shift toward him. It was not threatening. It was not unkind. It was something else. One evening, Private Yana leaned toward Marcus, smirking. You've got an admirer. Marcus nearly choked on his food. What? She keeps staring at you, Yana said, jerking her chin toward the armored figure at the far side of the hall. Don't think I haven't noticed. Big, scary warrior woman. Watching our class clown like he's the center of the galaxy. Shut up, Marcus muttered, but his cheeks grew warm. Stories of the Therial Marcus could not let it go. He wanted to understand, so he asked questions where he could. The Therial did not speak openly about themselves, but some of the other alien allies knew fragments of their culture. An avian soldier named Korak explained one night as they sat cleaning rifles. The Therial armor is more than metal. It is tied to their soul. From the time they come of age they wear it, and it is never removed except in sacred privacy. Never removed? Marcus asked. Not even to sleep? Not even then, Korak said with a slow shake of his feathered head. To see a Therial without armor is to see them naked of spirit. It is not permitted, another soldier added. Their commanders are chosen for strength and will. They must never show weakness. They are symbols, not people. Marcus grew quiet. Symbols, not people. No wonder she had reacted to his joke. No wonder the word you had meant something. For perhaps the first time in her life, someone had spoken to Celera as if she was not a statue of war but an individual. The patrollet was on the 4th night after the Ridge encounter that Marcus was assigned to lead a patrol along the valley edge. The air was cold and the ground was littered with broken machines. His squad moved carefully, scanning the shadows. Halfway through the route, a heavy step joined them. The squad turned. It was Celera. Her massive, armored figure walked at Marcus's side without a word. The soldiers exchanged nervous glances but said nothing. No one dared question why a commander would join a routine patrol. Marcus tried to act normal. Quiet night, he muttered. Yes, Celera's deep voice replied. The squad finished the patrol without incident. When they returned to camp, Celera lingered. Lieutenant Hale, she said, her voice like steel drawn slowly from its sheath. Marcus swallowed. Yes, Commander. You make them laugh, she said. He blinked. That's kind of the point. Why? She asked simply. Marcus shrugged. Because it helps. Because we're all tired and scared and broken half the time. Laughing makes it feel lighter. Even if just for a minute. Celera was silent, visor glowing faintly. Then she said, Your words carry weight. Be careful where you place them. Before Marcus could respond, she turned and walked into the shadows of the camp. Rumors. The next day, the camp buzzed with whispers. Soldiers noticed how Celera stood closer to Marcus during gatherings, or how her visor followed him. Some joked about it, others frowned. Better watch yourself, Yana teased, nudging Marcus. She's either going to marry you or crush you into the dirt. Not sure which. Marcus forced a laugh, but inside he felt a strange mix of pride and worry. If the Therial noticed their commander's attention, what would they think? Would they see it as weakness? As dishonor? He didn't know. But he couldn't stop thinking about her. The secret conversation that night, Marcus could not sleep. The sound of distant gunfire rolled across the sky. He rose and wandered outside the barracks, and there she was again. Celera, standing by herself at the edge of the camp, her massive silhouette outlined against the burning horizon. Marcus approached slowly. You really like standing alone, don't you? He said softly, her helmet turned toward him.
It is easier, she replied. Easier than what?
Than being with others. When I am among them, I am their commander. Their symbol. When I am alone, I am nothing. Her words made Marcus's chest tighten. He had never heard her speak so much. You're not nothing, he said. He stopped. He almost said you're Celera. But he realized he didn't really know who Celera was. Not yet, instead he said, you're someone. Even if they don't see it, the silence stretched. Then unexpectedly she asked, when you said you, what did you see? Marcus blinked. I saw the strongest person in the camp, but also the loneliest. For a long moment, Celera did not answer. Then she turned back to the burning sky. You may be right, she said quietly. The cracks in the armor in the days that followed, Marcus began to notice small things he had never seen before. When Celera walked, there was a faint stiffness in her right leg, as if old wounds still ached beneath the armor. Sometimes her movement slowed, and though she hit it well, Marcus caught the subtle hesitation. He also noticed the faint lines of energy across her chest plate flicker when she stood still. Like the armor itself strained to hold together, she was not invincible. She was not perfect. She was in some hidden way vulnerable, and Marcus realized something startling. His joke had not just amused her. It had shaken her, cracked open the heavy shell of duty she wore like her armor. The challenge it did not take long before others noticed too. One evening, during a meeting with the Allied commanders, a rival alien officer confronted her. "Commander Celira," the officer hissed, "your attention is divided. You stand too close to the human. You watch him when you should watch the enemy. This weakens you." The hall grew tense. All eyes turned to her. Celira stood tall, silent. Her visor glowed like fire. Marcus felt the weight of the stairs, but before he could speak, Celira said calmly, "The human sees what others do not. That does not weaken me. It strengthens me." The rival officer hissed but said nothing more. Marcus's heart pounded. She had defended him, not as a soldier, not as a joke, as something more. The night of the storm that night, a storm rolled across the valley, lightning flashing red through the clouds. Marcus sat in his bunk, unable to sleep. He thought of her words. He thought of how she had stood against another commander for his sake. When thunder shook the camp, Marcus stepped outside. And once again, he found her waiting at the edge, watching the storm. She turned her visor toward him. "You should be resting." "So should you," Marcus replied. For the first time, her helmet tilted as if in amusement. They stood in silence as the storm raged. Then Celira spoke quietly, almost too softly for the thunder to drown out. "When you said you, it reminded me I was more than armor. More than duty. No one has spoken to me like that in many years." Marcus swallowed. "Then I'm glad I said it." She was quiet again, her massive form outlined in lightning. Then she said something that made his breath catch. "Perhaps one day I will show you what lies beneath this armor." Marcus's heart raced. He could not reply. The storm roared around them, but in that moment the world felt utterly still. The storm passed, but its memory remained. Marcus could not forget the words Celira had spoken. "Perhaps one day I will show you what lies beneath this armor." For days afterward, those words echoed in his mind like a secret he could not share. He told no one, not even Yana, though she often teased him about Celira's strange attention. It was not something to joke about anymore. It was heavier, deeper. A new battle looms. The war on Sindera 7 had reached a turning point. Scouts reported that the machines were preparing for another massive assault, one larger than any before. The battalion worked day and night to strengthen defenses. Soldiers dug trenches, set mines, and calibrated cannons until their hands bled. Through it all, Celira remained a figure of steel. She moved among the troops, silent and towering, her armor glowing faintly in the dim light. To most, she was still a symbol, untouchable, unshakable, but Marcus saw more now. He noticed when her steps slowed, when her visor lingered on him longer than necessary, when her hand hovered over her chest plate as if remembering something painful beneath it. She was beginning to change. The private summons on. The night before the battle, Marcus sat alone cleaning his rifle. His squad was restless, nerves stretched thin. He kept his usual grin, telling jokes to ease the tension, but his mind was far away. Then a shadow fell over him. He looked up. Celira stood there. "Lieutenant Hale," she said. Her voice was steady, but there was something different in it, something almost hesitant. "Yes, Commander?" Marcus asked. "Walk with me." The soldiers glanced curiously as Marcus rose and followed her out of the camp. No one dared to stop them. Celira led him beyond the lights into the dark hills where only the stars and faint fires lit the sky. They walked in silence until the camp was a distant glow behind them. Finally, Celira stopped near a broken ridge where shattered machine husks lay like grave markers. She turned to him. "I said I would show you," she said quietly. Marcus's heart skipped. "You mean—" She raised one massive hand to her helmet. The glowing visor shimmered. "You spoke to me as if I were more than armor. Tonight I will be." The unveiling Marcus swallowed hard. He had not expected this so soon. His chest tightened as he watched her fingers trace the glowing seams of her helmet. There was a hiss of released pressure, a soft hum of disengaged locks. For the first time since he had known her, the armor shifted apart. The helmet lifted. Marcus froze. Beneath the heavy mask was not the faceless warrior he had imagined, but a woman, flesh and blood, weary yet strong. Her skin was pale, her features sharp but graceful, her eyes a deep silver that reflected the starlight. Her hair, bound tightly, spilled like strands of dark metal down her back. She looked at him, not through a visor, not through glowing glass, but directly. "This is me," she said softly. Marcus's throat went dry. "You're—" He stopped himself. Words felt too small. Celira tilted her head. "Disappointed?" "No," Marcus said quickly, shaking his head. "Not at all. I didn't think I'd ever see this." She studied him closely as if weighing his honesty. "Few have. To remove the armor before another is forbidden. It is our greatest law, but you spoke to me as if I were not a weapon. And I wanted you to know." Marcus felt a strange heat behind his eyes. He forced a small smile. "Guess my joke really did change the galaxy." For the first time, Celira's lips curved. It was not quite a smile, more like the ghost of one, but it was there, the conversation. They sat on the ridge among the broken machines. For hours, Celira spoke quietly of her people. "The Therial are born into duty. From the moment we can walk, we are trained. The armor is placed upon us when we come of age, and it is never removed before outsiders. It is not just protection, it is identity. Without it, we are seen as nothing." "That's wrong," Marcus said firmly. "You're not nothing. You're—" He hesitated. Her silver eyes softened. "Her say it so easily." "Because it's true." She looked at the horizon where distant flashes of battle lit the night. "I have fought for years. I have been the unshakable commander, the untouchable symbol. But inside this armor I am weary. I bleed, I ache, and I wonder if anyone will remember me as more than a shell of metal." Marcus leaned forward, resting his arms on his knees. "I'll remember, because I see you, Celira. Not just the commander, not just the armor. You." The silence that followed was heavy but warm. For once, Celira did not stand tall like a statue. She sat beside him, shoulders lowered, human in her vulnerability. A moment of trust. The hours passed. Celira placed her helmet on the ground beside her. The armor still glowed faintly, but she did not reach for it. She simply sat, exposed to the night air, watching the stars. Marcus could feel the weight of the moment. He knew how dangerous this was for her. If any of her people discovered she had broken such a sacred law, her honor, and perhaps her command, would be destroyed. "Why me?" he asked quietly. She turned her silver eyes toward him. "Because you were the first to speak to me without fear. You pointed at me and said you, as if I were no different than the others." That word, it woke something I had long buried. Marcus let out a slow breath. "Then I'm glad I said it. Even if it was just a joke at the time." "Not a joke," Celira corrected. "A truth." The return at last. The night began to fade. The eastern sky glowed faintly with the coming dawn. Celira reached for her helmet. She paused, looking at Marcus once more. "What you have seen, no one must know. To them, I remain the commander, the armor. But to you, I am Celira." Marcus nodded solemnly. "Your secret's safe with me." She placed the helmet back on. The hiss of lock sealed and the glowing visor returned. Once again, she was the towering figure of legend. But Marcus now knew the truth beneath. As they walked back toward the camp, side by side, Marcus felt a strange bond, one forged not of duty or command, but of trust. The battle begins. By sunrise, the machines attacked. The ground shook as endless metal forces poured across the valley. Cannons roared, rifles blazed, and soldiers screamed. The defense line trembled under the weight of the assault. Celira led from the front, her armor blazing with energy. She was a storm of steel, tearing through machines with unstoppable force. To the soldiers, she was the untouchable commander once more. But Marcus, fighting beside her, saw differently. He saw the woman beneath, the one who had trusted him with her face, her voice, her truth, and it made him fight harder than ever before. Aftermath. The battle raged for hours. When the machines finally retreated, leaving smoking wreckage behind, the camp was left in ruins. Half the soldiers were wounded, many dead, but the line had held. Exhausted, Marcus collapsed beside the barricades. His rifle was scorched, his uniform torn, but he was alive. Celira stood nearby, her armor scarred, energy lines flickering. She turned her visor toward him. For a moment, they simply looked at each other. And though no one else could see it, Marcus knew. Beneath that armor, she was looking at him as Celira, not just as the commander, the promise that night. After the wounded were tended and the dead buried, Marcus found her again at the ridge. She stood alone, visor glowing faintly. He approached, tired but smiling. You fought like 10 armies today. So did you, she replied. Marcus hesitated, then asked softly, Will you show me again? Not now, maybe not soon, but someday? Celira was silent for a long moment. Then she nodded once. Yes, because you are the only one I trust to see me. The promise hung between them like a fragile flame. Marcus smiled faintly. Then I'll make sure I survive long enough. For the first time, Celira gave him a small, real smile, the kind no armor could hide, and in that moment, Marcus knew his joke had started something neither of them could ever undo. The dawn after the great battle brought no rest. Smoke still curled from the wreckage across the valley, and soldiers worked without pause to repair defenses. The machines had been driven back, but scouts reported that the enemy was regrouping. Another wave was coming, and this one would be worse. Marcus Hale dragged himself through the camp, body aching from wounds that hadn't had time to heal. His uniform was scorched and his hands blistered, but he still carried the same crooked smile. His squad looked to him for jokes, for small words that kept despair away. He gave them what he could, even though inside he felt hollow. But something had changed in him. The night when Celira removed her helmet still burned in his memory. He had seen her face, her truth, and her trust. Now, whenever she passed him in the camp, towering in armor, visor glowing like a star, Marcus did not see the untouchable commander that everyone else saw. He saw Celira. Tension in the ranks, the Alliance battalion was uneasy. Soldiers whispered in shadows. They noticed the closeness between the human lieutenant and the Therial commander. Private Yana caught Marcus during weapon checks. You'd better be careful, she said in a low voice. Careful about what? Marcus asked, pretending ignorance. Don't play dumb, Yana said. Everyone's talking. The way she looks at you, the way you're always near her. The other commanders aren't happy. They think she's distracted, Marcus stiffened. She isn't distracted. She's the strongest fighter we have. Strong, yes, Yana admitted, but her people don't believe in showing weakness. And being close to you, a human? They think it's weakness. They'll challenge her. Marcus fell silent. He knew Yana was right. Among the Therial, honor was iron. If they believed Celira's judgment was clouded, they would demand proof of her strength. And that test was coming sooner than anyone expected. The challenge that evening, a gathering was called in the central hall, a space carved into the valley rock, its walls glowing faintly with portable lights. Commanders of all allied species attended, voices sharp with argument over strategy. When Celira entered, silence followed her. Her towering armor gleamed, her presence impossible to ignore. Marcus stood with his squad at the edge, but he felt the eyes of many turning toward him as well. Then it happened. A rival Therial commander stepped forward, taller even than Celira, his armor etched with deep crimson lines of energy. His voice thundered through the chamber. Commander Celira, he declared, you have allowed yourself to be softened by human words. You linger near this lieutenant when you should stand above all. Our people do not bow to sentiment. You dishonor the armor. The hall erupted in murmurs. Marcus's gut clenched. Celira stood unmoving, visor glowing. You question my strength? I do more than question, the rival growled. I demand trial. Before the coming battle, prove that your will is unbroken. Face the machines in combat, not with your full armor but stripped of its power. Show us that you are still Therial. Gasps filled the hall. To fight without armor was to fight nearly defenseless. Marcus's chest burned. He wanted to speak, to defend her, but Celira lifted one gauntleted hand, silencing the chamber. I accept, she said. Preparation. The trial was set for dawn. Word spread quickly. Soldiers whispered in disbelief. Celira, the untouchable commander, would face a machine warform without her armor's full power. Marcus could not stay silent. He found her at the ridge, watching the night sky. You can't do this, he said, his voice tight. I must, she answered calmly. They'll get you killed. Her visor turned to him. If I do not prove myself, I lose command. Without command, my people will not follow. And without my people, the line will break. I fight not for pride, Marcus. I fight for all of you. He clenched his fists. Then let me fight with you. For a long moment, she said nothing. Then she tilted her head slightly, as if considering something impossible. The trial is mine. I don't care, Marcus said fiercely. When you fought beside me, I was stronger. When I fight beside you, I can be more than I am. Don't face this alone, silence stretched. Finally, Celira said, Very well. But if you fall, it will not be by my choice. Marcus grinned weakly. Falling isn't really my style. The trial by combat dawn broke, red light spilling across the valley. Soldiers gathered on the cliffs above a wide arena marked by jagged stone. At the center stood a cage holding the machine warform chosen for the trial. It was massive, 3 times the height of a man, bristling with blades and energy cannons. Its red eyes glowed with hunger for destruction. Celira stepped into the arena. This time her armor was not sealed with its usual brilliance. Sections had been disengaged, leaving only the outer plates. The energy lines no longer blazed. She was still imposing, but far less protected. Gasps rose when Marcus walked in after her, rifle slung across his back. This is her trial, someone shouted. Marcus ignored them. She's not fighting alone. The rival commander sneered but said nothing. The warform's cage opened, metal groaning. The machine stepped forward, claws scraping the ground. The trial began. The fight. The warform charged with terrifying speed, blades flashing. Celira met it head-on, her great sword clashing against steel. Sparks flew and the ground trembled. Marcus sprinted to the side, firing his rifle at exposed joints. The bullets ricocheted, barely slowing the monster. Celira ducked under a blade, her sword slicing deep into the machine's arm. But without her full armor, the blow rattled her, sending her staggering. Celira, Marcus shouted, drawing its attention with more gunfire. The machine turned on him, eyes burning red. It charged. Marcus dove aside, rolling across the ground as its claws slashed where he had stood. He scrambled up, panting, and fired again at the glowing ports along its chest. Celira seized the chance. With a roar, she leapt onto the machine's back, driving her sword into the energy core. Sparks erupted. The machine thrashed violently, hurling her off. Marcus dashed forward, grabbing a discarded explosive from the ground. He slammed it against the machine's leg joint and fired. The blast tore the limb apart, sending the warform crashing to one knee. Celira rose, battered but unbroken. She lifted her sword high and plunged it deep into the machine's chest. The warform convulsed, then collapsed in a heap of shattered steel. The arena fell silent. The recognition Celira stood over the wreck, chest heaving. Her armor was cracked, her face hidden once more, but her presence was undeniable. Then Marcus stepped beside her, breathing hard, rifle smoking. He planted himself at her side. The soldiers above erupted in shouts. Not jeers, but cheers. The rival commander's voice was dark with frustration. This proves nothing. She fought with human aid. Celira's visor turned slowly toward him. It proves everything. Alone I am strong, but with allies I am stronger. That is why we will win. The cheers grew louder, echoing through the valley. Even the ethereal soldiers who had doubted her now raised their voices in respect. Marcus looked up at her, grinning despite his exhaustion. Guess we make a good team. She glanced down at him. And though her visor hid her face, Marcus knew she was smiling. After the trial, the camp was alive with renewed energy. Word of Celira's victory spread quickly, not just among the battalion but across Allied lines. She had proven her strength, and more importantly, she had proven that unity did not weaken her. That night, Marcus found her once again at the ridge. The stars glittered above, and the broken machine lay still in the arena below. You could have died, Marcus said quietly. So could you, Celira replied. He laughed tiredly. Yeah, but that's sort of my job. For a long moment, they stood in silence. Then Celira said softly, When you fought beside me, I felt free, not as commander, not as symbol, just as myself. Marcus looked at her, heart steady. Then I'll keep fighting with you. Not because I have to, because I want to. The silence stretched warm and unspoken. The war was not over. More battles awaited. But something had changed, not just in the camp, but between them. And Marcus knew that the next time Celira removed her armor, it would not be just an act of trust. It would be a choice born of something far stronger. The valley that once shook with gunfire was now quiet. Smoke still lingered and broken machine parts were scattered across the plains, but the constant thunder of battle had faded. For the first time in months, the Allied forces stood without hearing the scream of metal or the roar of weapons. The war against the machines was not over, but the great offensive had been stopped. Scouts reported that the enemy was retreating, not advancing. It was a small victory, but it was the first true one in a long time. Marcus Hale sat on a rock near the camp's edge, watching the horizon. His rifle rested across his lap, though he hoped he wouldn't need it again soon. His uniform was tattered, his body bruised, but his heart carried a strange calm. Behind him, footsteps approached, heavy, deliberate, familiar. "You're still awake," Celira's voice said, steady but softer than usual. Marcus smiled without turning. "I could ask the same about you." "Don't commanders get to sleep when the war pauses?" Celira stood beside him, tall and silent. The cracks in her armor had been repaired, but its surface was duller now, scarred from countless strikes. The sight made Marcus think of the trial, of the moment she had chosen to fight without full protection. She had won, but the risk still haunted him. A camp in change, the camp itself was different now. Soldiers who once whispered doubts about Celira now looked at her with pride. She had not only proven her strength, she had proven that trust was not weakness. Even the ethereal warriors, once distant and stern, walked with new respect toward their human allies. At the evening fires, laughter echoed again. Humans and aliens shared food, stories, and cautious hope. The machines had lost their aura of invincibility. Marcus noticed all of it, but his thoughts kept circling back to Celira. When she moved among the troops, they watched her as if she were more than a commander, something larger, something symbolic. Yet when she came near him, Marcus saw not the symbol, but the woman who had taken off her helmet and let him see her truth. The summons. 3 days later, word came from the Alliance High Command. Representatives of every surviving species were to gather at the Citadel of Concord, a station orbiting a neutral star. The purpose: to begin peace negotiations and plan a final united strike. Celira was chosen to attend as a voice of the Ethereal. Marcus, to his surprise, was ordered to accompany her, not as a commander, not as a strategist, but as a witness of her deeds. When he asked why, his own general only said, "Sometimes the smallest voice carries the most weight." So Marcus found himself boarding a starship beside Celira. As the vessel left the war-scarred planet behind, he stared out the window at the endless stars. He wondered if peace was truly possible, or if the machines were only pausing to prepare another storm. Arrival at the Citadel. The Citadel of Concord was unlike anything Marcus had ever seen. It floated like a massive wheel above a golden star, its surface gleaming with thousands of lights. Ships from dozens of species filled the docking rings, each carrying leaders and warriors who had survived too much war. Inside, the halls were grand, lined with banners of every world. Marcus walked beside Celira, feeling small among the towering figures from across the galaxy. Yet whenever his nerves threatened to overwhelm him, he glanced at her. She walked with calm certainty, even though every step she took carried the weight of her people's honor. The negotiations began in the central chamber, a vast circle with a glowing table that displayed shifting maps of the galaxy. Voices clashed, some filled with hope, others with bitterness. Many wanted revenge, others wanted retreat. Through it all, Celira remained silent until her turn came. Then she stood, her tall figure drawing every eye. The speech. "My people once believed that armor was strength," she began, her voice carrying through the chamber. "We believed that to show weakness was to invite death. And so we hid ourselves behind steel and fire. We fought, we endured, but we also closed ourselves off." The chamber was silent, listening. "Yet I learned," Celira continued, "that strength is not only in the armor we wear. It is in the bonds we share, in trust, in unity. I learned this from a human who spoke a simple word, not as soldier to soldier, but as one being to another." Marcus felt his throat tighten. He hadn't expected her to speak of him in front of the galaxy's leaders. Celira's visor turned slowly toward him. "That word was you. It was not meant as command or duty, but as recognition. And from that I understood what it means to fight not only for survival, but for each other." The chamber rippled with whispers. Some were skeptical, but many nodded. Celira placed one hand on her chest. "Therefore I will show you my truth." And then, before the eyes of countless leaders, she removed her helmet. The unmasking gasps filled the chamber. For the Ethereal, this was an act beyond tradition, beyond belief. No commander had ever revealed their face before outsiders. Her features were sharp yet noble, her eyes luminous with quiet fire. She was no longer the untouchable figure in armor. She was Celira, a living being who chose to stand unhidden. Marcus saw strength in that vulnerability, a strength greater than any weapon. If peace is to be forged, Celira said firmly, let it be forged not by walls and suspicion, but by trust. If we remain divided, the machines will rise again. But if we stand as one, no enemy can break us. The chamber erupted not in chaos but in applause. Leaders who had argued fiercely moments before now found themselves united in her words. After the speech that night, the Citadel's halls were alive with new energy. Negotiations continued, but with less venom and more willingness to listen. Celira's act had changed something deep, not just among her people but among all species present. Marcus walked beside her through the quiet corridors after the session. You really know how to make an entrance, he said lightly. She glanced at him, helmet tucked under her arm. Was it enough? It was more than enough, Marcus said softly. You gave them something real, something they'll remember. She studied him for a moment. And you gave it to me first. Marcus rubbed the back of his neck, embarrassed. All I did was crack a joke. No, Celira said, her voice gentle. You saw me. A choice for the future. The days that followed were filled with talks, strategies, and alliances. Slowly, agreements were signed. A united fleet was planned, one that would carry soldiers from every species. For the first time, hope did not feel like a fragile flame but like a rising sun. Yet for Marcus, the most important moments were not in the grand chamber, but in the quiet times he shared with Celira. They spoke of their worlds, of childhood memories, of dreams beyond war. She told him of the oceans of Therial, endless and blue, and he told her of Earth's forests and skies. One evening, standing by the viewport, Marcus asked, when the war is truly over, what will you do? Celira was silent for a long time. Then she said, I will walk my world without armor. I will show my people that it is possible, and perhaps I will see your forests, Marcus smiled, and maybe I'll swim in your oceans. The closing ceremony, the final day of the council came. A pact was signed, an alliance of every world against the machine empire. The leaders gathered one last time in the great chamber. Celira stood at the front, this time without her armor at all. She wore only a simple robe, her face uncovered for all to see. Her people, once horrified by such an idea, now stood proudly behind her, inspired by her choice. Marcus watched from the side, pride swelling in his chest. He remembered the first time he had joked, pointing at her and saying, You. That small word had become the spark of everything that followed. Now, as the pact was sealed and the chamber echoed with applause, Marcus realized the truth. Humanity's greatest strength was not in weapons or numbers, but in the ability to see others as more than symbols, to see the person inside the armor. Epilogue. A new beginning later. As the fleets prepared to move together for the final campaign, Marcus stood with Celira by the docking bay. Ships hummed, lights gleamed, and soldiers moved with purpose. Celira looked down at him, her luminous eyes steady. So Marcus Hale, she said, what will you say next? He grinned, heart lighter than it had been in years. Not a joke this time, just this, you. For a moment, silence hung between them. Then Celira smiled. A rare, radiant smile that belonged not to a commander or a symbol, but to herself. And together, they stepped forward into a future that was no longer bound by war alone, but by trust, hope, and something that went deeper than either had expected.